it's so weird how it becomes a privilege to do something
Even
that you
physics
When people
love.
and
ask,
film,
why did you get
just
your bachelor's
anything
in educated?
art based in general
Mm.
is quite difficult.
Okay, professional.
Hey Tanaka, thank you so much for having me. I'm good. I'm a little bit sick, but I'm really excited to do this podcast with you.
Great, thanks. Please do go ahead and introduce yourself and briefly tell us what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Tiziano. I'm a graphic designer. I I lived in Sweden for a while. I now moved back to my parents' place, but I've been in Sweden for 3 years,
Mhm.
and yeah, I've been working with graphic design and kind of building my brand as a freelance graphic designer
Okay, cool. You said you're back at your parents' place, which is where?
in Austria,
Okay, cool.
not Australia, but Austria.
Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah,
If you don't mind, please do share with us your journey from high school or even from before then to where you are now. I would really love for the audience to hear about your journey and hopefully learn something from it.
yeah, sure. So as a kid, I was always into drawing a
Mhm.
lot. I like to like doodle, even in math class or in school. I would not pay attention much, but I love to just draw and kind of drift away in my own dreams. Um, so when I was done with school, I got a laptop for Christmas and
Mhm.
uh, Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, and that was kind of my first step into this world of graphic design.
So that
So
was
I
after
started
high school.
after high school, yeah. So I
Okay.
was maybe 18. I got like a Microsoft laptop with a drawing pad, and that was like super high tech and super exciting for me. So I would spend my free time like doing digital drawings instead,
Okay.
like doing logos and drawing animals and stuff like that. And yeah, so after I found a design school in both the Netherlands and Sweden. And but then I decided to go for the one in Sweden, and it's called Hyper Island. It's a really nice school. I recommend it a lot. And there I got to meet a lot of other creative people.
Mhm.
And yeah, I got my first like small jobs, even if they were maybe unpaid or maybe it was just a little bit. I kind of like got started. And also during my time there, I switched more into the 3D space. And that's where my passion is right now, 3D animation, stuff like that. So after school, I started to um, get more jobs, and now I can make a living off design.
Okay. So during your time in high school, earlier you mentioned that you used to kind of drift off whilst doodling in whichever classes you were taking. Would you mind sharing which classes you were taking and then kind of what made you decide to study graphic design? Like, how did you find out about graphic design? Is it something that you were always exposed to? Like, what was that part of your journey like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. For me, it wasn't really a decision. It was always something that I like to do. And I think my parents played a big role in it because my dad is a painter. And so I've always been around painting and drawing. So
Mhm.
it kind of came natural. It wasn't like, will I study maths, physics, or graphic design? It was it just kind of fell into my lap, you could say.
Okay. So graphic design, you mentioned that you did a bit of illustration before you even got to university. And then once you were at university, you did a bit of 3D work, and now that's where your passion is. Please do tell us a bit more about that. Like, what is graphic design and what kind of work does it involve, and what are sort of the requirements or like the prerequisites that one needs to have in order to get into that field?
That's a really tough question. Could you repeat it again?
Okay, so I'll break it into two parts. So the first part is, what is graphic design, if it can even be defined? I know with industrial design, I have to write a whole essay just to describe what it is. But like, what is graphic design and what kind of work does it involve?
Well, you could think about it as design on a 2D space. So whether it be a poster or if it's displayed on a screen, unlike interior design, which fills a 3D space, graphic design is kind of, either on a wall or a website or things like that. So it can be more analog as well, where, I mean, back in the day, people used to paint as part of their graphic design jobs, and now it's all digital. So digital design, maybe, could be graphic design.
Okay. And you keep mentioning like a 2D space. Where in that area does the 3D side of things then come in?
That's a good question as well. So when you work in 3D, you work in a 3D space, obviously, but in the end, you have like a digital camera, and then you render it out on a 2D image. So kind of the product of working in 3D becomes 2D. So in that case, it's graphic design. But to be honest, I don't even know my work title, if it's like 3D artist, 3D graphic designer, graphic designer.
All of the above.
I have no clue. It's just words.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure like a lot of creatives, especially with how our industry or like world evolves every single day, it's kind of difficult to find like a specific box within which to fit in. And I think that's honestly pretty great, because it just allows for that versatility and room to just continue evolving or like try new things. But thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. Is there anything that you would like to say to someone who might be listening right now and is maybe trying to find their feet, or trying to decide whether going the creative route is, worth it, or if they should do something else?
Yeah, I mean, being a creative is a struggle sometimes. So it's definitely not a one size fits all. I would say if you're creative and you've always been creative, then just go and make it work. Because it's difficult to monetize what you do. You know, if you're a bricklayer, you can always say like, this is what I charge an hour. And I don't think it's the same in the creative field. It's very, very tricky to put a price tag on what you do.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, you spend half of your time doing bookkeeping or negotiating with clients or things like that, rather than designing. So it's a lot of around, things around just the designing part. You have to learn how to like sell yourself as well, which is, I think, tricky. I also want to mention what you just said with, putting titles on things. at one point it's good to define what you are. Like, I'm a graphic designer, but on the other hand, like you said, it's also good to like be flexible and kind of change. But it's also good to kind of pick one thing and focus on it, because I know some people that are kind of everything, and then they're not really specialized in anything. So I don't know if you have thoughts on that, but I think that's a really interesting topic.
Yeah, 100%. When it comes to that idea of like being too general, I feel like one can find themselves spreading themselves too thin in cases like that.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I personally, when I was in high school, I was very multidisciplinary, I would say. Like I enjoyed the languages, like I enjoyed French, but I also enjoyed physics, but I also enjoyed design and biology. And for me, that was a very difficult situation, because when we got to like the last 2 years of high school, in the first year of that, we had to kind of specialize in like a certain sector. So if you were going to do the arts or business or science or something like that. And for me, that was like a very difficult process, because I was kind of in all the boxes. But I couldn't then take all these boxes and put them into one. So I really struggled during that time, until the time I eventually went to university, and I decided that I was going to focus on one part of my trades, a jack of all trades, one part of my trades. And with industrial design, it's been great as well. Like, it's been multidisciplinary in and of itself, but it's definitely helped me a lot to focus on just that one area. And if I ever want to go into something else, I always can. So definitely, I have personal experience with spreading myself too thin, and I would definitely recommend focusing on one area and then doing something else if you want to do something else afterwards.
100% agree.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that marks the end of this episode. Thank you so much for your time, Tiziano, and everything that you got to share today. And to everyone who's listening, thank you guys for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.
Thank you so much.
How do I turn off this recording?